This is the letter lam in Arabic on the right top. It has an industrial number in black above it. And in the middle row in white, you see the letter alif. This table shows where these two letters meet. Interestingly, we are no longer talking about just Arabic, but Islamic scripts. Everywhere Islam spread, it practically everywhere introduced the Arabic script, but today it's in use with local adaptations with dots below, above, and so on. And this interesting challenge is wherever they meet, the associated or derived letters should also behave like the base letter. And this table shows in green that it has a product for each multiplication. Here's another table. This is an Iranian project to digitize the same typeface, or rather the same Islamic script style, the so-called nastali style. It has only 4 productive combinations, and all the other ones fail. I hope you can see the color marked slightly red. 4,100, almost 4,200 glyphs, as we call them, to cover a limited number of characters, and only 4 combinations are functional. This is a project in Pakistan for the same script, but then, by the way, the only functional ones are those needed for Arabic and Persian. Here you see a similar verification sheet where there is only 1 functional combination, and the number of glyphs is 17,000 glyphs. That's not good enough, so this is a font. Another font for the same typeface uses almost 20,000 glyphs, but at least they have now 4 functional combinations. What this shows is a mindset to use the available technology to represent the script as they have been in use over centuries. Why does it cause such an enormous complexity in numbers of shapes? Well, that's because the approach that is imposed by Western font technology is what I would call digitized legacy typography. And in fact, we have seen a similar thing before. You look at existing collections of glyphs and then use a technology to carry them on to the digital platform. In this image, you see the same combination, the lam and the alif, in metal, and you see its modern digital derivative. Everything, even the vertical lines, the side bearings, follow the structure of the original metal. And the overlaps outside these bearings are called kerning, and you see the kerning in the metal and the kerning in the digital age. It is basically digitizing a practice of 300, 400, 500 years of typography. And that's why a font like that, and this is a font with 20,000 glyphs. Oh, pardon me, this is 4,000, this is 20,000. It's page after page after page of very complex groups of shapes. Now let me return to the other example. This is the same paradigm, everyone at least filled in and hopefully correct. The approach is what I would call computer typography. It identifies the functional letters and gives each letter its own slot, and each letter sits in a box. So rather than carrying over all the measurements of the metal, the width, the height, the baseline, there's nothing of that left in these glyphs. All that information goes to the font itself, and it's calculated on the fly by the font layout engine. And as a result, the font is very small. This is a font that has the same functionality as the ones before, but on top of that, it doesn't do just Arabic or Persian or Urdu. It does every Arabic scripted language that requires this script. This is part of an approach, and that is my talk had no introduction or title, but it actually reverts the theme of this afternoon. We have typography in the service of scholarship, and I'm arguing that you need scholarship in the service of typography. Let me give you here an example. You have that same group of lam and alif, here in blue and green, in what linguists call a minimal pair. And it gives you a contrast that allows you to isolate a functional difference. The difference between these two groups of letters The top reads as Melen li Melik, whereas the bottom reads as Melel Melik. The meaning is totally different, as money for a king, and the other one is the money of the king. But the visual difference is that on top the letters are fused, and on the bottom the letters are simply unconnected. There's a logical space in between. However, in the reality of written Arabic, in this particular style, there is no space at all in between. They're always connected, but the way of connecting is different. The top one is fused, and that's why I don't call it a ligature. The bottom one is a ligature. A ligature is where you connect two letters without the obligation to connect, whereas in a situation where there is the only functional way to use the letters is combining them, you can no longer call it a ligature. And therefore I introduced the term fusing. Now fusing is at the basis of the whole thinking of computer typography for Arabic. On top I have here an example of handwritten script in the naskh style, which is the model for Arabic typography. And I call it a model because I am not a designer of script. I come from a linguistic background, and I approach script the way you would approach a language. If you talk about German, you're not going to complain about the large number of case endings you need. Or if you learn Russian, you're not complaining about the case endings or the verb inflection either. You simply take that as a fact and try how to describe or deal with it. And in this case, this is the reality of the script, and then the middle is the result. It is a model of a digital model of a script tradition. The lower line shows a different kind of Arabic, which is very widely in use with an obvious relation, but some contrastive striking form differences. Now I'm going to do this as fast as I can because I want also to allow some space for Lara Captain. You encode every letter logically, and I give everyone a color, but in terms of font analysis, script analysis and font construction, so you have analysis and synthesis in a way, you're dealing with a simple device which is also borrowed from linguistics, the common element between a group of letters, and you call that in phonetics or phonology, you call that an archive phoneme, and in script analysis you could, certainly in Arabic, you could in the field of Arabic, you could think of an archive grapheme. To get your analysis right, you have to have a keen awareness of the difference between styles, which is lacking in most European typography. Certainly early typography confuses styles. So you can again borrow from linguistics a concept of isogloss, which is a way of mapping dialects. Here I use the concept of isograph. I'm looking for features in each style that are so significant or characteristic that they help me to nail down the identity of a specific style. I marked the paleographic style as Kufi. Maghribi I dimmed because I simply don't have enough knowledge to come with valid statements about it. And then the ones that are closest to typographic Arabic based on Middle Eastern styles, the Thuluth, the naskh, the nastali, and the Roka style. And you see the theme that I chose, the lam alif, is in the middle row here. It's the most characteristic combination that helps to identify each style. You cannot mistake them. The lam alif has an alternative form, the top row, where you find a detail which sometimes helps to identify a style. These shapes are almost the same, but if you look at the left top pen stroke, there is a little tarwish or serif, which sits either on the right-hand side or on the left-hand side, and that is the difference between naskh and thuluth. Another thing is that if an alif precedes this particular second form, there is a characteristic behavior of the preceding alif. It either touches, which is a ligature, or it cuts, which is also a ligature. And you would usually, you would not see in the naskh style a cutting alif, or the other way around in the thuluth style, an alif that touches the right top. So it is a distinctive feature. Then a small digression, which is in a way amusing. There is in the paleographic Arabic, the Kufi style, there is no specific way of writing the name of God, the theograph. Whether the double lam is followed by the ha, which makes it Allah, or by any other letter, it doesn't affect the shape of these letters. However, in the Thuluth, Naskh, Nastali, and Roka styles, There is a significant difference in height if the lamb is part of the name of God or if it's part of just any word. Interestingly, this leads to the hilarious effect, which I call Deus ex machina, where the machine treatment of Arabic automatically generates the appearance of God in words where he's not expected to be. Like the Turkish word çetelerde has nothing to do with God, but the way the fonts are programmed, it pops up, plus a series of other complications. So finally we have a good instance that you can match with the term Deus ex machina. Then in order to build knowledge of the behavior of these scripts, I came to the conclusion that it's very efficient to use the Quran. Particularly the naskh style, it's prolific in the Ottoman world. If you catch a particular construction which you find intriguing, you simply look up as many copies of the Quran in any library or coffee table, facsimile, reproduction, and you can verify whether that is a structural thing or an incident. And it's not very likely to be an incident because the scribes were trained to apply the rules. So it's a very interesting corpus. It has its drawbacks because the Quran is a small text. And when you strip it off the dots, you still are left with about 4,800 fused or combined letters and letter groups. And a count of everyday usage on the internet yields about 13,000 combined letter groups without the dots, of course. And it's only in Arabic, and if you are aware of the principle of phonotactics, that means that even if you have a certain number of phonemes, not every combination of these phonemes exists. For instance, the word psychology in English is not pronounced with a P in initial position because the PS combination is not spoken in English, and if you write phonetically, you don't write it. And so since the Arabic language is written rather phonetically, you won't find anything that doesn't occur. So, these are the drawbacks, but still it's enough to glean the rules from it. Then, if you build a whole Quran in the structure of archigraphemes, which I did for Brill and which is now published as the electronic Quran, you can run a script on it to find the highest concentration of the phenomenon that you would like to investigate. So here I have Surah 40, Ayah 11, which happens to have the highest concentration of the Be archigrapheme. That is the generic letter that is shared by about 7 letters by means of disambiguating diacritics, but in reality they all behave under the same conditions in the same way. If you reduce all the elements that are not relevant, you could create a table where you have taken from the Quran a series of words that have a high concentration of this particular form. The advantage is, again, you can go to a library and verify. So it's very easy to find the material to check if you're finding an accidental construction or something that is a structure. Now here I'm showing that it is a structure. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 typefaces. Each of them is in fact a computer model of the nastali writing style. And you can see that they all try to do the same thing. In one case I marked in red something that was strikingly different, but for the rest they have problems with spacing, they have problems with dot positioning, but they all agree excuse me, they all agree that nastaliq should look in a certain way when a certain combination of letters is at stake. In this research you even discover that there are dialects. The Persian approach to the nastaliq, where it originated, or the Indian subcontinental approach, it sometimes shows differences, and the letter groups that help you to identify these differences, again, are isographs, and I have here a table of such remarkable differences, which can be summarized by the name of the script itself. This is the word nastaliq stripped of the dots, and you can see that there is one little difference here. There is here a raised stub that is there to support the te, whereas in the Persian one it's a wavy shape. Everything I just said about nastaliq, the idea that it has a grammar, that is a structure, is also applicable in other styles, particularly the one that is the core source for Arabic typography, the naskh style. By the way, this is the same approach. I show a series of scripts, a series of typefaces, each of which is done by different people, with the same purpose. Let me quickly mention the top one, that is our Deco type naskh, which is based on a direct analysis of manuscript practice. The second one is our Miri script. It's based on the metal typeface to print the 1924 Cairo Quran, which in turn is a project in the early 20th century to use metal typography to reproduce manuscript practice of the naskh style as closely as possible. Interestingly, the third one is exactly the same project to reproduce the manuscript style of the typographic style of the Cairo Quran, but done in Cairo itself with practically the same result. And the bottom line is a Microsoft project, the Arabic typesetting font, where again I marked in red clear errors. In summary, Arabic scripts have grammatical structures, or structures that you could describe sticking to the metaphor of linguistics. They have a grammar. And the top one is that sequence of high frequency be examples in the naskh style. Below it is the middle one is in the roka style, and at the bottom in the nastali style. When you contrast that with the most widely used typographical Arabic, you see from this perspective a totally different flavor of Arabic. Basically, there is no grammar. All the letters that have the same function are given the same form. And that reminded me of something that you see in Syriac, and particularly the Certo style. And I came to the conclusion that this could very well have been influenced by Syriac script. I'm not saying that this is the truth, and this is also why I'm bringing this as a plea for a scholarship in support of typography. It's a nice challenge for scholars to see if I'm right here. I see a yod adaptation in Arabic and a noon adaptation, where the model is the Syriac letter noon and the Syriac letter yod, which means that a sequence of, here is an overview how it spreads over the Arabic letters, but here you see an interesting consequence of degrammaticizing Arabic script. In the Syriac script, the noon and the yod are distinctively shaped letters. On top of that, in normal languages, you would not easily see a repetition of the same letter 3 times. So normally the phonemes of a word, and the repetition doesn't exceed 2. So you will never run into the problem of dealing with a sequence of 3, 4, 5, 6 repetitions of exactly the same shape, which would be the case in Arabic if you use these shapes to write Arabic, which is exactly what is happening on the left and the right side in the noon and yod derived Arabic, whereas the bottom line shows the original Islamic structure, where there are strategies or grammatically formed constructions to dissimulate these in order to maintain legibility. And I call it Christian Arabic also to provoke research. I see this mainly as something that developed in the West in a milieu where there was no access to Islamic script knowledge. This is a tentative table that I made a while ago that gives an overview with green on top the Islamic shaping developments, in red the attempts to mechanize these on the left, and on the right in blue what I would call the Syriac-influenced European Arabic typography. And you see in a glance that the rhythm of the examples is totally different. And the choice of the examples is again on the principle of isograph, where I try to find something that exposes as much of the structure as possible. This is the moment where I'd like to pass on the floor to Lara Captain. What I've done here is, this is a poster that she designed, which visually summarizes the challenges of Arabic type design and text treatment. It is, on the one hand, to maintain the continuity of the script edition, and on the other hand, to deal with the mass of languages that use the script.